Hey everyone, I wanted to create this video as a little bit of a public service announcement because there's some huge news that's been accelerated related to the Azure CDN from Edgio, formerly Verizon. Basically, it's been shut down January 15, 2025. So it's literally a couple of weeks. And it may even be a little bit sooner because of the circumstances that are surrounding the retirement of the Azure CDN from Edgio. So I thought it was really important to do a video, make sure everyone is aware, because maybe you're using it and you didn't even know you're leveraging it. So if we think about what exactly is this content delivery network and what is Edgio, imagine I have some content. Now that content potentially could be in some Azure resource. Imagine I have a storage account, for example. Well, that storage account exists in one specific region. So it's in one specific point in the geography of the world. And therefore, depending on where the client consuming that content is, I might have a really low latency, I might have a really big latency, which would impact the performance of that client application, that client service, that website, whatever it is. And so a content delivery network, imagine I have some network. And on that network, what they do is they have various points of presence all around the geography, for example, around the world. So we have these points of presence. And what these points of presence will do is imagine there is some data in that origin. Well, they have a copy of that data that they cache in these various points of presence. Now, obviously, the benefit here, now that we have this copy of the content in all these different locations, if I now have a client, so imagine I'm a client, and what these content delivery networks will do is they expose a particular endpoint. So this endpoint would reference all of the possible points of presence that could offer the content, but I, as the client, just go and talk to the endpoint. And what it will do is it'll actually do multiple things. So one of the huge benefits is it will actually direct me to go and pull the content from the one closest to me. So that gives me the lowest possible latency, so the best performance. But additionally, hey, if there was a problem with the one closest to me, well, now I'd go and pull it from the one next closest to me. So it gives me resilience and scale as well. It might also offer other services. It might give me protection from malicious actors. For example, clients are now not talking directly to my origin. I have this layer in front of it that could offer web application firewall type technologies. Yes, it's got the caching, but it gives me a number of security and protection benefits as well. So this is all fantastic. Content delivery networks. Yes, so we've got this CDN provider. And this is super common. And it's really useful where I have content that doesn't change. Images, cascading style sheets, HTML files, documents, maybe even video files. Something that doesn't require constant server-side calculations to generate it. It's static content that doesn't really change. Well, hey, I'll just cache it at all of these edge locations to give me that scale, that resilience, that great end client experience. So what's the problem? Well, a particular CDN provider, specifically Edgio, so Azure CDN from Edgio, it's formerly Verizon, they were going to be decommissioned, so I think end of life, can't use it anymore, on the 4th of November, 2025. Now you think, oh, that's a year away. That's not so bad. We can deal with that. That is no longer the date. What has happened is Edgio has gone bankrupt. And so what that now means, the service is not going to last till 4th of November 2025. It's now going to turn off 15th of January 2025. And so if you look at your watch, you check your calendar, wow, that's not very long at all. And it's bankrupt, so it may not even make it till the 15th of January 2025. So this is a super urgent thing, because if your application, your service is using the Azure CDN from Edgio and these endpoints just shut down, well, they're trying to talk to an endpoint that now doesn't exist, that now has no content. The service won't work, the app won't work. And this is not something Microsoft can extend if you complain to them. It's not their network. They have no way of extending that service. And so you have to get off of this urgently, urgently, urgently. Now, you may be looking at this idea of points of presence around the world and be like, hey, I've seen this before. Yes, Azure Front Door does exactly the same type of thing. Now, if you imagine the Microsoft wide area network, well, Microsoft has huge numbers of points of presence all around the world. They have their own ones. So that, yes, absolutely is Azure Front Door. And Azure Front Door does a number of different things. One of the things it does is anycast. And so the address you have is actually offered by all of those different points of presence. And it also then does split TCP. And so when I'm actually talking from my client to one of these endpoints, it's not just caching content, which yes, it does, but I actually established a TCP session with that edge location. Then it establishes the TLS connection with that edge location. And then it will go and pull large blocks of content and serve it up as you request it. So it does a huge number of things. And you have web application firewall that you can put in front of it because it's layer 7. So then you get those bot protections, you get those various types of attack protections. You do a whole bunch of great stuff. And therefore, instead of talking to the Edgio endpoint, well, you get an Azure Front Door endpoint. And so instead of the client talking to that, the client would now go and talk to that endpoint and would now go and talk to the Azure Front Door that is closest to them. Exactly that same type of experience. And if you're curious, there is a comparison document. So let's say you're using Azure CDN from Edgio right now. Well, can I use Azure Front Door? So you can go through and you can look at what the features are and compare to try and get an idea of, well, if I'm using Azure CDN from Edgio today, could I use Azure Front Door? What are all the different capabilities? So it walks through in detail. Additionally, they have created a migration document to help you with this. Now, one of the things they're recommending here is to actually stand up Azure Traffic Manager, because right now you're using Azure CDN from Edgio. So what you can do is Traffic Manager initially will just forward to the CDN from Edgio, and then I could split a part of my traffic to the Azure Front Door, make sure it works as expected, and then you could kind of shift all the traffic over. So they have a set of steps to walk through to actually do that migration. Now, if you can't use Azure Front Door because your workload isn't compatible, you could absolutely use another CDN offering. And then what you want to do is make sure you turn on routing preference unmetered. And what this basically says is, if you think about, okay, you have your Azure origin, well, normally you pay egress charges. So Microsoft have a number of CDN partners where they have their points of presence very close to our points of presence. And so providing they're part of the program, you don't get charged the egress traffic from when the data is coming from the origin to whatever that new CDN, obviously not Edgio, one that's in business, but you won't get charged the egress traffic. So you just have to make sure you go and set that up correctly to ensure you don't get that billing. And so this document walks through, hey, what exactly is it? You see you're establishing this CDN Direct Connect capability right here between the Microsoft Edge and then that CDN partner. and you won't get that billing. So it just walks through, make sure you do need to have your CDN partner being part of the program, and exactly how you have that routing preference, how you configure it, and you would be good to go. The only other thing I would say is, go and action this right now. You need to be going into your subscription and looking. Now, if you're the subscription owner, Microsoft have emailed you. They've told you about this. There will be alerts in your Azure portal. There's even a brand new, they managed to get this put in even though there's like end of year change freezes going on. There's an Azure Advisor that will talk you through and say, hey, you need to go and do something. If you look at the retirement FAQ and you scroll down, so it goes through the details of why, but this is really cool. So how can I see my impacted resources? They have a link here to the dashboard, and this dashboard is specifically looking at the Azure Advisor recommendation to migrate away from Azure CDN. So all you have to do, if you have access to an Azure subscription, don't rely on someone else, just click the link. It will literally take you 30 seconds, and I've got it linked in the description below, and just make sure there's nothing active. You don't have anything that you need to do. So you want to see there are no recommendations at this time. Fantastic. Go and have a Merry Christmas, relax. You don't have to do anything else. So please, 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 just, you may not even be knowing you're using it. It's a 30-second check to avoid a potentially catastrophic impact to your application. Now, what Microsoft are going to try and do is on January 7th, they will, on a best efforts basis, try and just move you to Azure Front Door Standard. Now, that may not actually meet all your requirements. You may need to go and then change it to Premium, but they're trying to do the most cost-effective method. But they are going to try and migrate to Azure Front Door on January 7th. If you don't want them to do that, because you've got your own plan, you can set a feature flag ahead of January 7th that will tell them not to try and do that. So if we go and look at that migration document again, it walks through what Microsoft are going to go and do, what will happen after that January 7th, and then it talks about all those different things. So it's got all of the different information about what is happening. So you can see there's that deadline for setting the feature flag to prevent the automatic migration to Azure Front Door. And then if we scroll up, so if you want to go to someone else, you have to set this flag and you have to set it before January 7th. And that will stop Microsoft doing it. Now, if you don't do anything, January 15th, it's just shutting down still. So this is not just, I don't have to do anything. But if you have your own plans, because you can't go to AFD and you need just a little bit an extra week, you can set the flag and they won't auto migrate you on January 7th. So that was it. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware, because this, again, would be hugely catastrophic for your service or your application if you are using it and it just shuts down on January 15th. So please, please just go and check. It's literally a 30-second look. See if you've got that Azure Advisor, and then you shouldn't be impacted. Hope that was useful. Take care.